Hi, everyone. God, I feel like I felt so many feelings today. I woke up very anxious. Then I was very inspired I thought it would be horrible to follow those two beautiful presentations, but actually, what a delight to be enveloped in so much knowledge and with the warmth of you all as well. So today, I'm going to be talking to you about social learning and how we acquire knowledge from each other in a socially anxious world. And I'm starting by introducing you to my kittens, which is relevant, I swear. It's not just an excuse to talk about them. So this is Mulder and Scully. I adopted them about a month ago. And I never had cats growing up, so I spent a lot of time before researching. I wanted to know about feeding schedules. I wanted to know about non-toxic litter brands. I wanted to know if I should harness train them, which is a thing in America, less so in Europe. But as soon as they actually came into my life, I found myself on Reddit daily. One of them developed an appetite for my plants. And so I had to look to other cat owners to understand different models that I could learn from about how to respond to this without just throwing the plants away. At a different point in time, I was very anxious about their appetite and about how much they were eating. Anxiety is very present, clearly. And so I had to look to other cat owners on r/cat advice, r/cats, to develop an understanding of what normal appetite looks like among kittens who are 4 months old. And these are all forms of tacit knowledge, right? Knowledge that we acquire through our own experiences and through our observation and understanding of other people's experiences. And this is because learning isn't really an individual pursuit. It is very much a socially and culturally constructed one. Lev Vygotsky is a pioneer in developmental psychology, said it much more eloquently than I ever could when he said that through others, we become ourselves. In other words, through others, we learn, we grow, and we acquire knowledge. And this is true for so much more than cat parenting. My skills as a researcher, my work and my vocations is built upon my experience learning from my colleagues, my peers, and my subjects. On a relational level, the relationships we form with other people, empathy, etiquette, the norms we have in our households are learned through other people, through our peers, and through generations. And similarly, on a societal level, numerous studies show that socially acquired knowledge is fundamental to innovation and change. And this isn't just to do with how we move through the world. I don't know, how we, make changes on a personal level, but also on a business level as well, right? That whole insights business is built on trying to understand people and socially acquired knowledge at scale. But there's a problem, because the way we acquire knowledge doesn't really work the way it used to, because we're all kind of socially awkward now. And I know that that is a broad brushstroke statement. I know there are some extroverts in the room who would disagree with me for sure. But there are actually a lot of research and a lot of studies that have come out recently that suggest our social skills are atrophying. Digitization and algorithms have divided us. Populist politics have polarized us. And then a norm-shattering pandemic came along and made it harder than ever for us to meaningfully connect with each other. When I saw this post, I thought, oh God, it's not wrong. Am I losing my social skills? And actually, this subreddit is a great example of this. r/social skills is now one of the top 1% subreddits on Reddit. It has more than 5 million subscribers, and people come here literally to try and figure out how to navigate difficult social situations. But this isn't just about how we socialize either. I think this really taps into James's presentations previously. It's also about where we socialize, because in recent years, our public spaces have changed beyond recognition. For a start, between online work, between online learning, even video games are bigger than they've ever been before, right? So our online worlds are getting larger. Meanwhile, across the world, not just our second spaces, not just our schools, not just our workplaces, across the world, across continents, there are reports of our third spaces being reduced, right? Nightclubs, libraries, public parks, shopping centres, they're all either being closed or losing public funding in some way or another. And so against this backdrop, is it really any wonder that half of people under the age of 42 say that they socialise more online than offline? This isn't just Gen Z, this isn't just teenagers that are, little aliens that we don't understand. This is people under the age of 42, because this is the world that we live in now. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing either, right? But it does make for a different social fabric that we're not used to learning from each other within. And so this sets up the question that I want to talk to you about today, which is really at the heart of this. How exactly are we supposed to experience things together and learn from each other when there are so many less opportunities for us to meaningfully connect with each other in person? And perhaps conveniently, I think Reddit might hold some answers. Because these online communities are really plugging a lot of the knowledge gaps that are being widened within this kind of crisis in social skills, right? Just as I've been learning the art of kitten rearing from r/cat advice, people across the world are coming to Reddit, our diverse network of more than 100,000 communities, to learn how to move through the world. And actually, fun fact, this is a slight digression, but Ask Swedit, which is the Swedish version of Ask Reddit, is one of the fastest growing, the fourth fastest growing life advice community on the site. So I'll send you the link later. But I'm digressing. So if this knowledge gap, if these communities are plugging these knowledge gaps, what types of communities are we seeing growing? Where are these knowledge gaps the widest? And actually, what's very interesting is that a lot of the places we're seeing a big uptick is around these subjects which aren't really taught in school. So, for example, is it any wonder that personal finance subreddits are growing at a time where economic instability and inflation are dominating the media discourse around money? Is it really any wonder that career planning subreddits are growing at a time when 44% of workers' core skills are expected to need to adapt in the face of AI? And really, is it a surprise that real estate subreddits are growing this exponentially at a time when most people under the age of 30 and kind of a lot of people above the age of 30 in many parts of the world worry that they may never be able to buy their own house? In this new social landscape, Reddit's communities are proving to be quite effective classrooms. And so what I want to talk to you about today, with the time that I have left, is what brands and employers as well can learn from these communities about cultivating spaces that really enable social learning. And also, importantly, building out hybrid spaces that incorporate both online and offline platforms into these spaces. And so the three things I want to talk to you about are normalising openness, defining boundaries, and integrating diverse perspectives. And normalising openness is the easy one to start with because Reddit, of course, is one of the few places on the internet where you can operate from behind a pseudonym. Because you don't have to disclose who you really are, people come here to address issues that they don't feel comfortable discussing elsewhere. Financial wellness, of course, is a big one. This example is from UK personal finance, but actually across Europe, across North America, and across many parts of South and East Asia, we're seeing communities pop up where people can admit that they suck at budgeting or they don't really know how to do their taxes, which honestly, I fall into both of those camps. So, sexual wellness is a huge deal as well. People need spaces where they can talk openly about sex and about sexual health. And similarly, our mental wellness communities provide the same kind of service. And crucially, they normalize these issues by exposing people in these communities to frank conversation about them. And this is something we see brands showing up to participate in as well. This is one of my favorite examples of a brand showing up on Reddit. It's the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, whose goal is to try and reduce suicide rates among American youth. And they teamed up with the Ad Council under the pseudonym Seize the Awkward to not only normalise conversations around mental health, but also to offer guidance, tips, tricks, strategies about how to open the conversation with friends. Because honestly, that's what a lot of people need now. They need instructions, they need guidance on what the social rules are, because they are so complex and so convoluted, fragmented across so many platforms. And so that's what these communities do really, really well, right? By normalizing openness, they create space for uncomfortable conversation, yes, but they also alleviate stigma. And that's so important. Even if brands or employers can't actually create spaces where people could truly operate from behind a pseudonym, they can still use their communications to normalize the way people talk about these issues and to help them overcome the awkwardness themselves in their own spaces. So that's our first opportunity. This little slide error is such a pain. Damn the fonts. The second one I'm going to talk to you about is defining boundaries. And I think this one is less obvious, right? Because when people think about communities, they think about letting everybody in. And actually what makes a really incredible community is enough focus that you know what people you are going to find there. Reddit's communities are great at this. There are so many rules. There's so much guidelines and guardrails and then we have moderators, both at a platform level and at a community level, who come in to make sure that people are playing by those rules. All of our communities are laser focused on the specific topic or interest that they are supposed to be about. And one of my favorite examples of this is Baby Bumps. So Baby Bumps has been around for like over a decade. It's got 500,000 subscribers. It's been growing rapidly. I think it's tripled in size since the pandemic. And it's for people who want to get pregnant, for people who are pregnant, and for people who have been pregnant in the past, right? Which is actually, it's kind of broad, especially if you include all of their partners as well. So every single month, another community is formed around Baby Bumps. And there's this whole galaxy of baby forked communities, which are kind of offshoots of this mothership, this main community. And I probably don't need to explain this to you, but for example, August 2024 Bumpers is for people who are giving birth or set to give birth this month. And here they can reach other people who are sharing their experience and really learn from each other about the specificity of every single phase of pregnancy with people in the same position. Now, there are other examples of this playing out. Another one of my favorites is also another brand example. It's very rare that brands actually come and make their own subreddits, but Fidelity, which is an investing app in the US, did a really, really great job of this with Fidelity Investments. And originally, this was a community intended just for Fidelity customers. You know, they can do customer care and support. They can announce new products and services. But actually, over time, they realized that a lot of people were spending time there to talk about investment as novices and beginners. Because I don't know if any of you have been to Wall Street Bets, but if you don't know the stock market, nothing makes sense there. It is not English. I don't know what they're talking about. It's very overwhelming. And if you're trying to learn, it's not a good space to start out, right? But Fidelity Investments is here you can connect with other people at a similar point in their life as you, at a similar point in their journey to financial literacy as you, and you can learn and grow together. And that is what defining boundaries is all about when it comes to community. It's about creating spaces where people know who they're going to find and that they're going to find their people when they get there. And this, I think, also really taps into James's presentation again when thinking about embodied learning, right? Like, how can you cosplay as what you want to be? Someone who's financially literate, someone who is a mother, someone who is a parent. How can you do those things with other people until you can actually assimilate that into your identity? And that brings me to my last point, which is in many ways the antithesis of this, because sometimes learning is about growing alongside people who share your experience, but other times it's about unearthing unknown unknowns from people who absolutely don't share your worldview or simply have a very different experience or a different timeline to you. And there's nowhere better than Reddit for this. But one of the most obvious examples of this is, of course, career advice. Anyone who has been a little baby in their industry knows that a good mentor is like gold, worth their weight in gold, because you need someone who has a different experience as you, someone who was born in a different time, someone who can guide you in a different way. On Reddit, often the AMA format is used for this. Very experienced business leaders will come to Reddit, they'll say, this is who I am, in this case, a very experienced fashion designer, and then they'll say, ask me anything. And then people can come and ask them anything. And this happens sometimes in very targeted communities like this and sometimes very broad ones. Similarly, real estate advice is another one. It's a place where you can expand your horizons. I personally came from a family where no one owned their own home. So coming to someone like, if I wanted to buy my own house, I need to speak to people who actually know what it's like to own a house and maybe know what it's like to buy a house in the current economic climate, right? And so again, these communities are very valuable. And then beyond material goods and capital gain, you can also find benefit from just learning other people's philosophies, learning from people who grew up in a different zeitgeist to you. This is an example of someone asking older generations about their experiences, but often we also see things like, hey, Gen Z, what do you wish older people understood better? This intergenerational conversation is incredibly important, right? Because this isn't just about like building empathy and learning and growing. It's also about social cohesion. So a really great example of a brand that showed up in this space in a similar way is Oatly. So Oatly used the AMA format to show up for climate-conscious consumers by shining a light on a kind of untalked about area of kind of eco-friendly branding, which is climate footprint labeling on food. And so from the offset, right, they're connecting lay people to their head of sustainability in order to help them understand a different expertise. But then on top of that, because they wanted a more nuanced conversation, they invited dairy farmers to join the conversation as well, to not just understand what the perfect industry should look like today, but also to understand why the dairy industry currently behaves the way that it does. And actually, even though a big dairy representative didn't join them, a small organic producer from Scotland did join them, and it really added a lot to the conversation by integrating nuanced perspectives. And so that's this final opportunity, right, about encouraging people to expose themselves to new models, whether that be age, worldview, heritage, political perspective. This social cohesion is really at the heart of all of this, right? It's about how can we build bridges between each other where maybe there weren't any before. And so, just to recap here, if we want to reconnect and better learn from each other, we really need to rethink our public spaces in this new social climate. If we can normalize openness, we can alleviate stigma. If we can define boundaries, we can build trust, and we can build in-groups that facilitate trust. And if we integrate diverse perspectives, then we can encourage understanding and empathy. And it's that point of empathy that I want to leave you on, even though I know I'm almost out of time, probably a little bit out of time, but it's fine. Because empathy is really at the heart of this, right? And I started this talk by talking about an interpersonal crisis, but I actually want to leave you on a more optimistic note, which is that just because our social skills are declining, supposedly, and even if it is getting harder to socialize, that doesn't necessarily mean empathy is declining. In fact, actually, anyone who has suffered with social anxiety knows that actually you often feel more tapped into other people's emotions because of the fact that you're aware of your own as well. So the next time you're having an awkward conversation or you get around a fraught topic at work, at home, at a conference, over drinks, maybe, remember that the person that you're talking to is more likely to be showing up with empathy rather than judgment. And maybe there is a way for us to connect, after all. Thank you.